712 here at KPEL. It's Nathan and Bernie in the morning, 232-1542 if you'd like to join the conversation with us this morning. It is Wednesday, April 15th. Get those taxes in. U.S. Senator David Vitter joining us on the phone line, and he's going to make sure I don't know, is he going to make sure we get our taxes in, Bernie? I don't know. Senator, how are you this morning?
Hey, Nathan and Bernie. No, I'm not the enforcer, please. I'm not part of the IRS.
Thank you so much for talking with us this morning. We really appreciate it. Let's get down to it. You picked up another key endorsement this time for your gubernatorial campaign, this time from Jeb Bush.
Yeah, he's coming into the state today, actually, and joining me in Metairie. We're having a big event there, so I'm really looking forward to the visit, certainly honored by his very strong and supportive words.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of your campaign, how is it going so far? We're just my goodness, I mean, we're almost in May. We're just a few months away from that big time election. Some people are calling it the Super Bowl of Louisiana elections. How's your campaign doing so far?
It's really going great. We're hitting on all cylinders. I'm traveling the state every week, lapping the state in all parts of the state. And we're doing great in every category, fundraising, and we'll have another great event with Jeb Bush today. Polling, we're continuing to lead in a very strong position in the polls. Great grassroots network all around the state. But the category I'm most determined to lead on is solutions, ideas, moving the state forward with clear, concrete solutions and strong leadership. And to help do that, I've put forward a plan, a clear, detailed plan. The first two chapters are on our website, davidvitter.com. The plan is called Together Louisiana Strong, and it will address all our major challenges, not just with happy talk or political rhetoric or vague notions, but clear, detailed ideas. And I'd invite folks to go to davidvitter.com, look at our first two chapters of Together Louisiana Strong, and react. There's an easy opportunity to email, react with ideas and further suggestions, and I'd love to hear from folks.
I wanted to pick your brain on this, and we're talking with U.S. Senator David Vitter, if you're just now joining us. Of course, the legislative session is now well underway.
Sure.
Yesterday on this program, we had State Senator Freddie Mills, and he said that the decision on whether to accept Medicaid expansion or not could be inevitable due to the dwindling federal block grants, that in the long term, we might have no choice but to accept expansion under the Affordable Care Act. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we definitely have a choice, and we need to think through it and make the choice carefully. But I disagree that we somehow don't have a choice. We absolutely do, and we need to think very carefully about it. I've said I would not rule it out, but I've put clear parameters on whether we even consider moving in that direction. And, one thing I'm very concerned about is the additional cost to the state. Over time, higher ed in particular has got crowded out of state spending, mostly because of rising healthcare costs. And clearly, in the last few years, higher ed has been really hit with budget cuts. So whatever we do with regard to this, we need to know that it's not going to lead to more of the same. And this Medicaid expansion does require a state match, so it does require new additional state dollars in a few years. So one thing I've focused on and said very clearly is we need to have a clear plan about where that comes from and how it's not going to crowd out other very important aspects of the budget like higher education.
Yeah. We're talking with U.S. Senator David Vitter. If you're just now joining us, higher education. There were pleas at the state capitol yesterday before one of the committee hearings from students at various universities here in Louisiana saying, "Hey, we're your constituents in this case, and we can't deal with increased tuition. We can't deal with further cuts to our university's budgets. Increased tuition amounts to tax hikes for us." And your thoughts on the higher education crisis?
Well, that's why we need to go to the fundamentals of the budget, spending reform and tax reform. And that's why I've said the very first thing I would do as governor is immediately call a special session on those fundamental issues. We're not doing that now. We should. Governor Jindal has, quite frankly, put too many constraints in terms of what the legislature will do this year. We need to go to those fundamentals, and that's one of the first two chapters of my plan, Together Louisiana Strong, that I've released, because it is such a key challenge, even crisis now, going to that core spending reform and tax reform.
Yeah, that's pretty much the next question I wanted to ask you. I read an interesting piece from Jeremy Alford at lawpolitics.com this morning where he talks about the legislature may have a little bit of independence from the governor this session, but the governor has clearly outlined what he will and will not accept from legislators, so they're sort of forced into this box.
Right.
How can the legislature, and this is coming from the guy who wants to have that seat on the fourth floor, how can the legislature assert its independence from the governor while at the same time what's the word I'm looking for? Seeking his wrath, I guess.
Well, look, Governor Jindal, again, has set these parameters, many of which I disagree with. I wouldn't put us in that box. I would put everything on the table, and so would have a lot more room and a lot more flexibility, both in terms of spending reform that he's not leading and tax reform that he's not leading. So I wouldn't put us in that small, constrained box. And specifically, I'd go after removing a lot of the dedications and protections on certain spending items that push all the cuts in the direction of higher ed. On the tax side, I think we need to take a hard look at all of our state tax code exemptions and credits and deductions, determine in a very sober way what makes sense for the taxpayer, what passes a clear cost-benefit analysis in terms of economic growth, and what does not.
U.S. Senator David Vitter joining us on the program this morning, giving us a little bit of his time. I know you got a busy schedule ahead of you, Senator. Thank you so much for talking with us. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to visit.
All right. Again, thank you. Coming up on 720 here at KPEL.